Recording started.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon again, everybody. Again, thank you for joining us. My name is Manuel Medrano. I'm the Environmental Services Manager here for the City of Chula Vista, and today we have a really interesting conversation and a presentation from Dave Donato, a recycling specialist here at the City of Chula Vista, to discuss what are some of the requirements of a new organic waste collection regulation. That's a statewide regulation that will affect the way you dispose of your waste, and they'll have some changes to your programs, similar to the programs, the change in programs from several years ago when recycling started. So you'll have to start thinking a little bit more of how to dispose of your waste, and this is for a great benefit, and they will go over those great benefits as well. So thank you very much, and help us welcome Dave Donato to present. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right.
And by the way, sorry, I'll go back towards the end and announce some of the future webinars that we'll be hosting.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Summer Sustainability Series webinar on the new food waste collection program coming to Chula Vista. My name is Dave Donato, and I am a recycling specialist in the City's Office of Sustainability. This presentation is complementary to the presentation given previously by Risa Barron of Republic Services. Next slide, please. So in addition to the city's backyard composting program, where you can attend compost workshops and trainings to learn how to compost your fruits and vegetables, there will soon be a commercial composting program. This commercial program will be used for the processing of food waste from Chula Vista residents and businesses. So hopefully you have seen one or more of our educational pieces. You can see in the lower left a small printout of one of our flyers. Our outreach efforts have included information about the program through these mailers, newsletters, social media, and of course our website. And we will continue to provide this updated program information through these channels. Next slide, please. So why is this new collection program happening? Well, you can look on the left-hand side, the chart there, and this chart is from CalRecycle. It's a state entity that conducts a statewide waste characterization study every 4 years, in which they measure the contents of California's waste stream. So in this 2014 study, 41% of what goes into the landfill is organics, otherwise known as food waste, compostable paper, yard waste, which include leaves, grass, trimmings, branches, and stumps, as well as non-hazardous wood waste. And when we say non-hazardous, that means not treated or not painted. And then on the right side, you can see a chart from Chula Vista's waste characterization study back in 2015. And you can see that the compostables make up 44%, which almost 30% of that is food waste. So City of Chula Vista sends a lot of food waste to the landfill. So when these food scraps, along with the yard waste and wood waste and other organic material, are buried in the landfill, they create methane. And methane is known as a super pollutant and is 84 times has 84 times the global warming potential of CO2. 20% of the state's total methane emissions come from landfills. And so in 2016, the California Senate passed a bill to reduce methane emissions from landfills. So Senate Bill 1383, otherwise known as SB 1383, requires municipalities to implement programs that will divert 75% of the organic material from the landfill by 2025. Next slide, please. So that is why Republic Services has developed this new food waste collection program to collect all food, even meat and dairy, food soiled paper, food soiled cardboard, and process it into compost. Much like a manufacturing process that generates a product, this new program will generate compost. So you can see on the left-hand side, the collection, you have the trucks actually collecting it and hauling it to the composting facility, and where it will get processed, and those are compost piles that where the food material is put into, and it generates a new product. And you can see on the right hand side, that's one of the city's free compost events in which we provide compost to our residents. So will compostable items be accepted? And unfortunately, in the current process that Republic Services is going to use, compostable items such as compostable bags, compostable utensils, compostable, and any other compostable containers have not been proven to break down in this current process, and therefore will not be accepted in the program. So this food waste collection program will increase the city's waste diversion rate and will further the sustainability efforts of the Office of Sustainability. Republic Services, the new program will include both residential and commercial components. Next slide, please. Speaking of commercial, the commercial food waste collection program will accept only food waste. So the commercial yard waste will be collected separately from the food waste. Containers available to businesses for the program will be green and include either 32 or 64 gallon carts or 2-yard bins. So upon the program implementation, both Republic Services and city staff will visit businesses to set up the service, educate their staff, and provide any other needed assistance for businesses to participate correctly in the program. Next slide, please. So why are business organics going to be collected separately? So the separation of the food waste and yard waste is easier for commercial businesses because a majority of them have mostly food waste. Additionally, the commercial food waste will be processed through equipment to reduce the contamination, keep those contaminations out. And I see something in front of the slide. No, back, there you go. Thank you. So there's going to be equipment to reduce the contamination, actually pull the contamination out. And so by including yard waste in this process, the yard waste will actually damage the equipment, and that equipment is very expensive. So that is why we're going to collect, or why the program will collect food waste separately in the commercial. So ideally, we would like to separate residential food waste from yard waste as well. However, just a tremendous amount of costs for staffing, having extra trucks, other additional carts, and other equipment too. So, and you can see on this slide the accepted items. So once again, it's all food waste, including meats and dairies, all food soil paper products, which include the paper takeout containers, paper plates, and Yahoo, your pizza boxes as well. But as the commercial program will not accept yard waste. Next slide, please. All right. So another requirement for businesses is food recovery. So what you see on the left is called the EPA's food recovery hierarchy. And up at the top is the most preferred method, and down at the bottom is the least preferred method. So if you look, you see what level composting is at. It's kind of far down. It's above landfill and incineration, but it's further down than source reduction um, and feeding hungry people and the other two. So at the top of this, you see source reduction. So that's the first R. Always reduction is what you want to initially do. And then feeding hungry people comes under that. So, and that's pretty much donating food to food banks. So the requirement of SB1383 is businesses must have an agreement with an organization that will recover this edible food. And that includes all the edible food from the business that would otherwise be disposed of. So edible food means it's still good, and for whatever reason the business doesn't want to sell it or distribute it for whatever reason, but it's still edible and in good condition. So this requirement applies to grocery stores, food distributors, wholesalers, large restaurants, cafeterias, etc. These are high volume businesses that have the greatest potential for recovery of edible food. Next slide, please. All right, so on to residential. Residential, the city has had an excellent yard waste program, yard waste collection program since the 90s. And so the big change is going to be adding food waste to the yard waste cart, as well as food soil paper and food soil cardboard. Residential service will include single family and multifamily. Apartments and condominiums are also included, yes. Upon the start of the program, all leftover food, once again, including meat and dairy, food soil paper, food soil cardboard, and yard waste will be accepted in the cart of the new residential yard waste food and yard waste collection program. Residents of single family homes will continue to have the convenience of the 3-cart system. The green waste cart becomes the food and yard waste cart and will accept food waste in addition to the yard waste. And of course, the blue recycling cart for all non-organic recyclables, as well as clean paper and clean cardboard, and a black landfill cart for all other trash items. So when the program rolls out, Republic Services will schedule the delivery of green food and yard waste collection carts to residents who don't currently have a cart. And the current yard waste cart rental fee will go away. Residents will also have the opportunity to receive a countertop bin. You can see it in the top right. This bin will be used to transport your food waste from your kitchen to the cart outside. Next slide, please. All right, multi-family units, like apartments and condominiums, will also have to recycle their food waste. Depending on the size and space constraints of the complex, multi-family units will either have a 32 or 64 gallon carts, green carts, or the green 2-yard bins for their food waste and their food soil paper and food soil cardboard, as well as their yard waste. Residents in multifamily complexes will also have the ability to receive a countertop bin to transport the food from their kitchen to the collection cart or bin. Next slide, please. So these are the items that are going to be accepted in the residential and which includes both single-family and multifamily homes. All food waste, so it's much like the business, except for the residential program will include accepting yard waste, grass clippings, leaves, flowers, houseplants, trees, brush, and clippings. Next slide, please. So let's talk about contamination. So these are the things that we want to keep out of the yard waste bin. So plastic, especially film and foam plastics, as well as glass, are some of the worst, are probably the worst contaminants that can go into your yard waste card. So please keep these out. These items on this slide, all these items on this slide should not go into your green yard waste and food waste cart. It should be placed in the trash. Any items that are recyclable or are accepted in the recycle bin should be placed in your recycle cart. All right, next slide, please. So when is this going to happen? So the new food and yard waste collection program is scheduled to begin later this year. And the law is actually says it's supposed to start by January 1st of 2022. So we, as I mentioned before, we have been sending out a lot of information about the program. We will continue, our outreach efforts will continue in the next several months prior to implementation and continuing after implementation. And that will include more educational mailers, newsletter articles, and social media posts. And these will provide updated information on not only program start dates. As we get closer, we will know more details about the actual start dates, as well as different participation details. The city's clean webpage will also provide updated information as it becomes available. Next slide, please. Yes, I think I left this in just to get a picture of, see all the trash that comes in on a daily basis. So some more information, of course, organics are 50% of what goes in California's landfills, and they emit that methane gas, so which is 84 times more potent than CO2. Next slide, please. And that is my presentation. I will be here for any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Dave. Great presentation, great information, and hopefully we'll have everybody's participation on this new program, which is important. And there'll be additional information to follow up because other benefits will be provided to our residents into the city as part of this new program. So again, thank you very much. And I encourage everybody on the call here on the presentation to take advantage of some of the current programs we have for compost, like the compost workshops offered at the Living Coast Discovery Center, and also the free compost events that we have quarterly at the Otay landfill coming up at the last Saturday of this month, I believe, right, Dave?
Yes, August 28th.
Great. So if there's any questions, please go ahead and type them on the Q&A. And it looks like we have a few here. And just bear with me here. Here's a question. Will there be any exemptions for businesses to participate? Or let's take the one for businesses and then the one for residents. So let's go ahead, Dave.
So exemptions, so CalRecycle, who is the state's entity that is enforcing this, is pretty strict. As we will be going out, as I mentioned before, staff will be going out to businesses. If it is determined that a business doesn't have a certain level of organics, then there is the potential for an exemption. And there are two, and the actual amount escapes me currently, but if you only have, a couple gallons of organics at your business per week, there is that potential for an exemption. Like I said, we will be reaching out to the businesses, and we will look at each business individually and make that determination at that time.
How about for residents? Will there be exemptions for residents?
I am unaware of residents. I think that is been determined that much like the trash, that all residents will be on the program. It's going to be part of the cost of your service, of your trash service.
So those exemptions for businesses are designed for the types that are perhaps might not be generating a large number of organics. If you compare a restaurant to, say, a small office building, which, yes, they might have some lunch waste from the employees, but for the most part, their production or generation is quite small compared to a restaurant, which unfortunately might have a lot of food waste and spoilage and other organics. Then those exemptions will apply for those type of businesses. So yes, there will be, and also there's exemptions for size, for space constraints. So some businesses that don't have, absolutely don't have the space to be able to host a container for safety purposes, then they'll be exempted. And there's also a California fire code that also could require for the city to offer these exemptions. So as Dave said, staff will be out there along with Republic Services staff evaluating some of these sites to be able to determine what businesses will be exempted from participating. And the service, again, it won't be whatever business needs to sign up for this will be prescribed to sign for it. So in this case, say like I mentioned, an office building or a small office building will not be charged for that additional service. In contrast, the restaurant that requires this service because they generate a lot, obviously they'll have to pay for that service itself. So it also becomes an equity thing here, and they don't have to sign up for the business if they don't really produce a lot of this or generate a lot of this waste. Another question, Dave, how will this be enforced?
So once again, through city staff, public services staff, as well as the drivers will all provide input as far as the businesses that are or are not participating. We will, staff will be visiting a certain percentage of all the customers per year and determining, making the determination whether or not they are participating in the program. If if it is found that business is not participating in the program or not participating fully in the program, then there will be education to that business that will, in 2024, then the city will be required to eventually follow up with the potential of fines for a continued non-participation in the program.
Great. Another question, Dave. What is the plan for outreach and education? And you sort of went through that, but if you could kind of remind us.
So part of probably the biggest part of the education outreach will be mailers going out. We have ones that go out strictly for businesses and ones that go out strictly for residents. There will be many social media posts on all the platforms. We have a monthly newsletter that goes out. We will use the city's monthly newsletter as well. A big part of education for the businesses will be the on-site visits, but it is our intent to do both business groups, visit business groups, residential groups, and and visit there, present to them, and provide answers to any questions that those businesses or the residential groups may have. Did I miss anything? I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to add that both for public services staff and the city will be deploying a pretty large interactive campaign to not only do, at this point, virtual presentations to community groups, schools, and other special interest groups, but it'll include branded information. So the same messages you'll see being sent out by the city will be sent out by Republic Services. So there's going to be quite a bit of community outreach to several groups and of course to schools and elected officials. So
Yeah.
the concerned effort out there is going to be to make sure that everybody knows that and including the information we send out on our websites and social media. And also the mailers, like as Dave mentioned, those are very effective. Those are actually our number one source of information to residents. Everybody is expecting to get these, and we have already sent those out, but we're going to continue on throughout. It's just not going to stop as of 2022. So it's going to be a large effort. You'll get a lot of information from us in the coming years because it has to really continue on. It can't just stop after 1 year. To help keep keep up participation, and also the biggest issue is keeping the material very clean, making sure that we're not putting the wrong stuff in there, like Dave said, glass, plastic, and metal in that container. Because if we can't produce pristine, clean material, then the markets for that material will be reduced and it'll be harder to find. And we want agriculture to use this material. We also want land users, land managers to be able to use it in parks and open spaces and medians and properties. So it's very important for all of us to do our part to make sure this material is clean. The next question.
And I just want to reemphasize that there will be a tremendous amount of collaboration between city staff and Republic Services for this program.
And the next question, will there be more free compost event during the year since there will be more compost available?
So currently there's 3 events per year, and that's what we have contracted with Republic Services. So in the future, we will look into evaluate if we need to do additional events per year. But currently, and for the foreseeable future, there's only going to be three events per year.
Yes, being that this material will be more available, and especially because it's going to be produced here in Chula Vista from Chula Vista sources, homes and businesses, we're definitely going to do our best to offer these events a lot more. I'm hoping that at least twice as many. So if we have for 3 a year, perhaps 6, but we'll definitely explore that option really soon and make that decision. The next question. What will happen if there's large amount of contamination in bins? Will the bins be rejected and will there be fines?
Yes, there will be a rejection of highly contaminated bins. The initial response to that will be education, providing education to the businesses, to the staff of the businesses, letting them know that what would happen if it continues. But we've always had the philosophy of educate, 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 and then when you've done all that, educate some more. So that's our going to be our philosophy going forward. Except Cal Recycle pretty much has a 3-step process. So there will eventually be, like I had mentioned before, fines for businesses that have a failure to improve and not contaminate
So
their
similar,
bin.
I'd like to add that similar to current practice, if a business or a resident contaminates their recycling cart or bin, those loads are actually rejected. So residents, the container is not picked up. Residents and businesses are contacted, and there are given the option whether they would like to have the items picked up as trash. And then there's, in the case of businesses, there will be an additional cost incurred for residents. It's a little different setup, but yeah, there's already there's already loads that are rejected. As far as the fines and oversight, yes, like Dave said, there's a step project that process that it's similar in the city as well to code enforcement, where you're notified, given a notice of violation, notified, and we work with you to make sure that we provide you the right information and that the issue is corrected. But like Dave said again, it's mainly educate. We're hoping that we don't have to get to that step, as always. But unfortunately, I say unfortunately, Cal Recycle, the agency again from the state, does want us to enforce as of 2024. So the first 2 years will be a strong emphasis on education. So another question, there's a big problem with food waste in schools, and yes, there is. Once students touch the food items and put them on trays, these items cannot be accepted back, even if students have not touched them. Two questions. Will schools get green waste dumpsters? And will any food recovery be done from school cafeteria food?
So schools are a state entity. Most schools are, and so they will be required to follow this legislation as well. The city, and that whatever school, whatever the hauler for the school is, which I think in Chula Vista, the case is Republic Services, will provide education to those schools for participation. Regarding food recovery, um, any food, and whether it's in the school or whether it's in restaurants or stores, um, once that food has been set out, it is not donatable. So in the case of a school cafeteria, if they have prepared a pan of rice and the rice goes out to outside to where the kids or to the line where it is then served from, that cannot be taken back and then donated. But if that rice does not make it out to the line, then it has the ability to be donated to a food recovery organization. So I think I answered both those questions.
Yes, you did. And thank you. That's a really good question. Yes, schools are they do waste a lot of food, unfortunately, and the this regulation requires us to do education to schools, but like Dave said, these are state entities that they have their own compliance and they have to basically answer directly to the state. But as they're in the city, there's always opportunities to connect them. I'm talking about city staff, connect them to food rescue organizations that perhaps maybe not the food that's already been quote touched by students, but if there's any food that they have and that has not been served and could be rescued, that could be an option as well. So um,
They, there
go ahead.
is at some schools there is what they call share tables,
Mhm.
where if a student gets an apple or gets a milk or whatever it is and does not want to have that, they can put it on what's called a share table, and then another student it will be able to um, um, select that, grab that carton of milk or piece of fruit and eat it if they so desire. But that's regarding food recovery and donations. That's pretty much the extent of once it reaches outside the kitchen.
Great. Another question here, is there a rough estimate of how much this program should help lower Chula Vista's greenhouse gas emissions over time? And the answer is yes. You have it? If not, I have the number, Dave.
I do not have that number.
So according to estimations we've done through our zero waste plan, which is, by the way, it's available now on our the city's website for comment, and I encourage you to check it out and give us your thoughts. We have a really easy way for you to fill in a form online to give us some comments. But our estimation looks at 67,000 greenhouse gas emissions or metric tons of CO2 if this program in the next 15 years. So quite a bit. It's actually the highest amount if we look at all of our other waste reduction strategies. Reducing organics, taking organics out of the landfill for composting purposes in this case will be the highest number, the highest percentage there of reduction. So that's a great question. Thank you very much. Another question here, when time permits, would you talk a little bit about the risk of contaminants and how that affects composting resulting from the program?
Yes, that's a great question because when, especially glass, of course, plastic, this food waste is going to go and the yard waste is going to go through the compost process. It's a manufacturing process that creates this product called compost. The intent is that this compost will be used on ball fields, on parks, on grass, on people's yards and yards of commercial buildings, yards of multifamilies. And so the small contaminants that are unable to be screened out, there will be a screening process at the before the compost goes out, is sold or given away. And so if you have broken glass, if you have smaller pieces of plastic, these all will be then put in, they'll continue to be in the compost that gets put on these ball fields, on these in, the beds of residential houses, buildings and such. So, and that just, so the plastic, it just puts more plastic out into the environment. The glass, well, if we have small little pieces of glass, there is potential more danger of cutting or something that can injure people. So so it's best to keep those out. The glass and the plastic won't hurt the compost process. They will not contaminate the compost at all. It's just they will be in that final product. And so if you have a lot of that material in the final product, the value of that product, that compost product, goes way down.
Thanks, Dave. I wanted to just go back quickly to the greenhouse gas savings because fortunately I was unable to find quickly my greenhouse gas equivalency or equivalent that we were able to get from a calculator from the EPA. So just for a little bit of perspective, the 67,000 metric tons of CO2 that we are looking to reduce from this program equates to 14,000 vehicles per year not being driven in our area. An average of 168,000, almost 169,000 miles driven by passenger cars per year. It also equates to 7.5 million gallons of gasoline consumed, or 6.5 million um, gallons of diesel, and the numbers go on and on. I mean, the EPA offers a great calculator. Another one, really quickly, is 12,000 homes worth of electricity used per year. So, the reason why the state chose this program as the number one, or one of the top reasons why we needed to employ it, is because we found that that CO2 and mainly methane that's being produced in landfills happens to be from one of the top five producers are landfills, and food happens to be again in the top of in organics in general of what's being produced. So um,
Did we get a conversion factor on how many times we can travel to the moon and back on that mileage?
we should not offered in the EPA, but that would be an interesting one. Next question we have here. Will there be any formal education programs offered to school districts to get the information out on the large scale to the Chula Vista community? Yeah, well, I could
I,
actually so go ahead,
Go ahead.
Dave.
No, go ahead.
So we are working with a couple of consultants that are helping us develop some of this messaging that we want to make sure we send out, including some of the work that Republic Services is doing, partnering with local nonprofits. So if you have students in your home that are attending either the Sweetwater Unified High School District or the Chula Vista Elementary School District, you often get online messaging, emails, social media. So we're partnering with them and both us and Republic Services to use those resources to make sure we communicate with parents and students as well. So that's a great resource, and thank you very much for that question. That's also in the plan.
I, I think additionally, city staff and Republic Services staff will be able to present to schools, um, parents, parent groups and such as well.
Mhm. Yep. Another question here, how will this affect operations related to the city? For example, organic waste at city parks, like trash cans over the weekends, or city offices inside a recreation center. So are we going to be offering this type of collection at these parks? So first, to address the operations part of it, yeah, one of them, like as Dave said, we're going to be using this material, this composted material, the compost, at city parks to and rec centers in the grass areas and the public areas to make sure, as we, we'll further mention that compost helps reduce water use. It helps keep pathogens down and well, perhaps not pathogens, but also keep weeds down. And there's a lot of great benefits to the use of compost and grass and parks. And it'll be savings for not only the city, but also for savings and use um, fertilizers. So it's a great benefit to that use. As far as offering this collection at city park and recreation centers for the users and generators inside of those facilities, that's something that we'll be also working on, especially for employees, which are the biggest, I would say, and some of the biggest generators there with some of their waste, but also for the public that visits these sites.
Yeah, we are required to do that,
Mhm.
to provide that service to them, and so that's just one other thing that we need to develop
Mhm.
the process for that.
Next question. Will there be new technologies coming down the line in years that will help us deal with organic waste in other ways? So that question is addressing the benefits of processing organic waste. And I think one of them is, which is already happening actually, in other cities here in San Diego County, where their waste is going to and what's known as an anaerobic digestion facility. And it's in North County in Escondido, where this waste is processed and digested into a gas that could either, well, at this point, currently is being used for the collection trucks that that particular company, which is EDCO, that is using. But in some instances, it also is used. The gas is used to power turbines to power to get electricity, or sometimes in the case of water treatment plants, it helps power the equipment that processes and cleans the water, because a lot of these water treatment plants use or digesters as well. So that's and what's coming down the road. I mean, who knows? In the next years, there could be even more efficient equipment, more efficient facilities um, that could take this waste at a higher level of contamination. Currently, it has to be somewhat clean and pre-processed in many instances. So who knows? Maybe in the future there'll be facilities that could take even solid waste and get all the organics out of it directly. But that's yet to come. Currently, the use is what's the optimal out there. And again, the ETCO facility is a few years old, and so who knows? Maybe in the next 10 years you'll see something really interesting um, that could be developed. Anything else, Dave?
Yeah, just there's of course improvement in technology that will assist in the efforts to reduce the contamination. Whether it's cameras or whether it's other screens prior to pre-treatment facilities that will remove contamination
Mhm.
prior to the composting.
Mhm.
Yeah, there are just many, and this is what part of what the state's goal was, is to create these different industries and jobs that will go along with
Mhm.
collection of organics.
Mhm. Um, Next question here says, currently schools have trash dumpsters and recycling dumpsters only. Will they get green waste containers? And I could quickly answer that question, and it's yes, they are will be required to have green waste, but also food waste containers, whatever program is going to be offered to them. If it's going to be similar to Chula Vista, then they'll have containers for food waste only and others for green waste only, and that'll be available. But again, the schools have a different contract with Republic Services, is a bit independent from the cities, but for the most part, for efficiencies, they're offered the same. So they will have to have that service available to them. They'll have to prescribe to that service. And yes, I agree with the next is more of a statement that currently food waste does go in the trash dumpster. So in the future, as of 2022, schools will be required to start putting those the organic waste in the new green waste or organic waste containers. Will city be training people, volunteers to go out in schools and community groups to help with the education? That's a great question. We haven't really considered that. But yes, that's always an option. In fact, our zero waste plan does have a proposal for a program called the Zero Waste Champions. So that's obviously something that could be that was going to be part of or be part of that whole program. So yes, that's coming. Just for schools, or not really. It'll be for everybody. So if we have a zero waste champion that can go to a business and help us train a business, it'll be great. But also be available for schools.
As well as so with our backyard composting program, we have a master composter training course where many of our um, trained master composters have worked with schools and come up with actual programs to divert food away from the landfill. So I foresee that that is another potential volunteer base for those efforts.
Certainly. And one thing I'd like to just clarify, yeah, for residents, for residential generators, you'll be able to put all your food waste and food soil paper, food soil cardboard, along with your yard waste now, in for commercial generators
Once
like
the program starts.
when the program starts. For commercial generators, once the program starts, It's a little bit different because we're tailoring this program for high generation producers. So they will be asked to put only yard food waste in for the commercial generators. And if some of them there's a small group of businesses out there that still have that currently have a green waste or a yard waste and yard and garden container. So those businesses will have to make sure that that waste goes separately and then it goes to the composting facility. That's the caveat there. So there are some apartment complexes that also have their own yard waste collection containers. The reason for that is because unfortunately commercial generators, we could do a lot of education, and yes, we'll ask folks, the volunteers, to help us train schools as well. But there's a high contamination level in the food waste, and sometimes it has to do with not having enough staff to break open depackaged food. So what's going to happen to this waste is that it will actually go to a pre-processing facility there at the Otay landfill, where there's a depackaging feature to the equipment they have, and there's also a I guess a squeezing component to that machinery, where it basically squeezes out all the organic waste or the organics by gravity. Everything falls down, it gets collected, it turns into a slurry, and then that gets mixed into the all the other compost. So that actually cleans the material and helps with the contamination levels. So this is something that's been in practice in other countries and in this state actually, and also even by the current trash company, Republic Services in Orange County at this point. So it's a proven method for to keep contamination down, and it's this is why we think that that's going to help keep the quality of this compost very high if that's coming out of Chula Vista and out of the Otay landfill. So that's I wanted to make sure that's clear. If I hope I didn't confuse people thinking that they're going to have an extra container, but for residents, you'll be able to put everything in your green cart. For businesses that produce organic waste, that's a little different. They'll have separate containers. But for the most part, I would, geez, correct me, Dave, 95 or 99 even percent of businesses out there have recycling and trash, and they'll be the ones that will need this, that will to need to subscribe to this program will have this extra container or containers if need be to collect this organic waste. Um,
Yes.
Thank you. It sounds like there's no other questions. If there is any, feel free to add on there. But while we see, we'll give you guys time to add a couple of questions if need be. I'd like to invite you to our next three Summer Sustainability Series webinars. The next one happening on August 19th. This one's a little different time than we normally have these. This is at noon, and it's on energy benchmarking. So how is your building performing, and what can we do to make the building more energy efficient, and what benchmarking means. That'll be explained during that webinar. Then on September 2nd, really popular because of popular demand, recycling 101. Again, we're embarking into this new program to separate organics, but recycling still needs a lot of help. We hope that you're not wish cycling, that you're really recycling. There's a lot of material that people think it's recyclable, and unfortunately it's not. And I'm thinking of plastic bags, plastic film. So we need to demystify recycling, and this is a great webinar that will help you do that. So please join us on September 2nd at 4 o'clock. And the very last of our series in the summer on September 16th also at 4 p.m. will be the aforementioned Chula Vista Zero Waste Plan, where we'll explain some of the actions that we plan to take. Again, giving you the opportunity to give us your comments on this plan that's currently available on our city website for you to look at, and again, with a really easy way to provide comments. This presentation will go through each one of the actions and everything that's being proposed at this point. This is really a plan that grew organically, and no pun intended, but from really grassroots our sustainability commission, a subcommittee that was formed with a lot of input from not only city staff but the community, and a lot of great information on there that will help us put us in the path of becoming a zero waste city in the near future. So please join us on September 16th. And I see that there is no more questions. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. We'll see you on the next sustainability series. And any questions that you couldn't think of right now, please let us know. There's also a way to ask us on our website. You could always ask questions there. We'll be happy to answer. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us, and have a good rest of your day.
Yes, thank you, everyone, and appreciate all the great questions. Have a good evening.